Hello and welcome. My name is Carron Little and I'm director of Out of Sight Chicago, the public performance festival. And today I'm here with the amazing Chicago artist, dancer, multidisciplinary artist, Sara Zalek. And we're going to be talking about her work today. And I just want to acknowledge that this is Saturday, November the 7th, 2020. 15 minutes ago, the news fully accepted that Biden is now the president of the US, and we are talking to you from Chicago in the US. So we focus our work on public performance, and so it is my great pleasure to be talking with Sara Zalek, who is a performance artist and facilitator rooted in a physical investigations of trauma, resilience, and hybrids. Their work challenges the capitalist quest for the eternal elixir and asserts that disruption has the ability to create social and ecological change. Through Buto, a Japanese dance form, and Buto Chicago, Sara Zalek connects national and international teaching artists with Chicago art makers across genres in independent and fringe areas, including dance, Buto, physical theatre, experimental music, and they create opportunities for positive communication and arts integration, both using workshops, performances, and conversations about personal and collective body. And you can see Buto Curious and Buto Chicago on the butochicago.com website. And she also has a collaborative practice with the Trickster Quartet. And we have presented Sara's work, both collaborative and solo work, for many years. I think the first performance we produced was in 2013, which was when we invited the public to share their freedom songs. And then Sara collated these freedom songs onto an iPod, and the public could receive a t-shirt with the word freedom across the chest and an iPod with freedom songs. So, so great to be with you here today. And so the first piece I'm going to show is a piece from a year ago, and big shout out to the videographer Laura Mitchell, who we've worked with since 2013, who is a phenomenal videographer and documenter in Chicago. And she has edited this video of a performance that Sara did last year, which was part of a series of performances called The Gold Test. So let me switch over. So this piece is by Sara Zalek and it's called Gold Test.
So I went to the doctor, I said, doctor, please, what do you do when your true love meets? He said, hardest thing in the world to do is to find somebody who makes you make a sad, make a sad, make a sad, sad song, make a sad, make a sad, make a sad, 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 sad song. And so I went to my mama, I said, Mama, please. What do you do when you true love is just the hardest thing in the world to do? To find somebody who believes in you. So she comes back to me. I make a sad, make a sad, sad song. I make a sad.
How about don't feel? How about don't feel? How about don't feel? Wrong. How about don't feel? How about hate? How about hate? How about don't feel wrong? How about don't feel wrong? How about love? How about don't feel hate? Love. How about don't feel? How about don't feel? Truth is, I'm in love with trees. And in order to feel safe when I was traveling alone, I would go to a church and sit on the stairs or go inside. And somehow I would feel safer. But then I discovered trees. And I no longer had to go into churches to feel safe. Because anywhere I could touch a tree, I could find a friend.
Hello. So that was very poignant about the love, hate. Oh, let me turn that off. So this next performance so Sarah has a lot of performance that she's done in public space that we're going to talk about today. And also most recently throughout this year, she's been doing a lot of performances online. So this next performance is a solo piece that she did at the beginning of the lockdown with the Experimental Sound Studio. So let me share my screen. Hello and welcome. That's a long performance. It's 30 minutes long and it's really kind of intense and you're holding your breath. Sarah, could you start by just describing that performance? Because it is a long piece and we can perhaps share the link so people can watch the full length of it. But perhaps you could describe the score of the work.
Sure. Well, first, thank you for having me, Corinne. Thank you so much for also sharing the great news this morning about our new presidential situation, which the transition now we can keep holding in our best vision forward. I feel like everything, for me this year has been a complete upheaval, as everyone has felt. And that piece was made, that was really my first online performance in the spring. I think it was April. The date is probably there. I think it was April 24th, part of the Acorn series at Elastic Arts. And the score for that piece really, it was still exploring, as you saw in the gold test, my fascination with this piece of metal, this sheet metal, and also exploring ideas of inside and outside, internal and external space. The intimacy of the home, for me, was a really good place to start on the inside. And then I love to be able, this was the first time I could really play with both being behind the camera and in front of the camera. I could really alter the point of view, and that became really fascinating. And so just in planning for the performance, that's kind of what I kept playing with. And because I am mainly improvising in the last few years, working with scores, but improvised scores, so that there's plenty of room for chance, possibility, discovery within the performance context. So because I find that so essential to the work, my score is a very, I guess it's simple, usually
task-based, actually. I really plan the performance as I'm going to first do this, then this, then this, and it's a map. I create a visual map for myself so that I can like find my way, so to speak. But yeah, it's so funny. At the very end of that performance, I thought the first thing I think, and I thought that day, that evening, was, oh, there were so many other ways that that could have gone, you know? And in my early years of performing, that was a difficult moment to actually get over, or to be kind to myself in that moment of after a performance. I still remember how vulnerable I can feel. And when working with the issues I work with, trauma and resilience, and trying to really transform a negative experience or potentially negative experience into one that becomes a challenge and something that we can overcome and problem solve and discover so many new parts of ourselves through, you know, I found it through performance, but I think you can find it in any aspect of your personal practice. And so through my art, I want to share that ultimately. So I remember too, that night, some people really loved that performance. Other people were like, yeah, I could not watch it actually. So, you know, like it was too, at one point, either they became disinterested, which I think happens a lot with online performance. It's difficult to hold the tension of a moment. Like for me, you described it, you said, you know, you were on the edge of your seat, kind of like breathless, holding your breath, which is how I felt all week actually now. But right, we were all kind of holding our breath on the edge of our seat. But it's easier in the online format, I think, for people to just go to the next thing or be distracted by the actual literal moment in their life that is happening. But definitely in that moment, we were being told, you know, not to even go outside. And so I couldn't even imagine a life like that. And I had friends that stayed indoors for weeks at a time, literally did not step outside. And I just thought, even from the beginning, that can't be good. Like I knew it wasn't good for my mental health. So I messed up and I did go outside every day, or almost every day. Yeah.
Yes. So we have a question in the chat from the audience. And just you know, we're going to open this up to the audience at the end. So we're going to really hopefully delve deep into Sara's work here and really talk about your work both in public space and this solo investigation. And you were talking there about the internal and the external. And one thing, I was one of those people that watched that performance and was so gripped. It could have gone on for me. And I was really, and even today, just watching that moment of going from the internal space of the home to the external space of the garden, and where we get this vista of the west side of Chicago, and then you are in control of the camera and our gaze. And, you know, often, so there's a reversal. Well, there's a sense of agency as the performer, which is not, you know, often we are the subject being documented. Whereas in this work, you're really, you become the documenter, the performer, and, you know, there's a sense of agency of what we are seeing, what is being depicted. And it is this, and it was at this moment of severe lockdown that we're heading into again, and where this sense of the home and public space is again these borders that we were talking about last week. when we were talking about Martine's work. So this kind of this intensity, and with your movement and vocal work, what are you thinking? Can you describe your thoughts about, I know, we have been going through a particular moment in the US over the last 4 or 5 months, and how you have been responding to that in your personal practice as a body and movement artist, and as your internal and external practice. How has that our situation over the last 4 or 5 months been shaped by that? About internally and externally.
Yeah, I definitely, I have a very different relationship to my studio practice. One is that I don't know if everyone here knows, but outer space quite well, and I've been involved and was part of outer space for the last 10 years plus. Have been part of that space, and that was a shared community rehearsal space and performance space in Wicker Park in Chicago. And we had to close that down in May of 2020 for 2 reasons. I mean, quarantine definitely shut it down early, but actually somebody bought the property and we were going to be, we were kind of evicted anyways. A new developer bought the property. So it forced me to take my home practice to a different level and to really change how I was working at home. And then the other part was, well, I had a hip replacement surgery actually in January. So I was actually healing from it right into the beginning of quarantine. So I had to move every day. I had to walk. Every day was part of my healing process. And so I began to have a lot of one-on-one dates with people just walking. And this became an essential part of my practice. And it continues now, either walking or dancing, getting together, singing, but outside, it's just critical. Like rainy day, sunny day, cold day, hot day, whatever it is, it's like to be out and moving is, the part of my practice that shifted both my social way of being with people, but like creative way of being with people as well. And also, connecting with people one-on-one, because we couldn't go to an event where I would see 30 people at once, or, that I knew, or these groups just weren't able to gather. So the one-on-one became that. And then my studio practice has just been, I went back to drawing and watercolor like more deeply as part of my practice. And that's been really, really fun and amazing. So
I wanted to, you mentioned the body and the vocal work, and in the first performance we saw today, the gold test, it was again, you moved from this interior space to the sidewalk on the street, but you're using poetry and movement of the body to really take the audience through this this journey. I always feel like your performances are, this journey of discovery, and you talk about working through trauma, having resilience. You're really kind of providing these tools for the audience. And there is this beautiful moment in the gold test where you hold up the mirror and you shine sparkle onto people's faces. So, these intimate moments, can you, just going back to this idea of body and voice work, and how this can you tell us a story of what was the moment of epiphany for you when you were, thinking about the importance of voice and the body working as an integrated?
Oh, wow. Yeah. It started with, Buto practice, but actually, someone I work with quite a lot, Elan Lemieux. She's from Canada and she is an opera singer, and she started coming to my Buto class in 2014 at High Concept Labs in Mana Contemporary. And it was a winter class, and it was, she just started showing up, and she said to me one day, like, I want to go more into the voice. I had definitely done some vocal stuff with different teachers, but not much. It really had been not much. And honestly, speaking for me was more difficult than movement, as far as like finding my real vulnerable self, or the most vulnerable parts. I was very shut off at that point from a lot of language or voicing my opinion or singing. Really, I wouldn't show it off. It was something I could maybe do, on my own, but I would never like include it because it was still way too vulnerable. But my physical practice just kept growing and growing. But then when she really introduced that like voice, and then I remember I was working with Joanna, Hannah Brock, who I also work with a lot, and we became a trio that has made a lot of work together, actually, and a lot of even vocal classes. But I was working with her at that time on this other piece, this mattress piece, In Between Worlds, which maybe we can share with our audience because it's a little bit of an older piece, 2005. But you also curated that piece, and it is a really beautiful work. But it was while we were working on that piece that I began on my back exploring movement and finding my voice, and how much strength that the ground could give me in through my back, having my whole back just relaxing into it and letting the voice just come straight through, like channel. And still, I find that is the key to like the vocal work for me, is that it opens up all these channels and it allows me to actually hear better, respond better, just feel more in tune to my environment. And when you say this, also going back just for a moment to the internal, external, I feel like the voice is the bridge, or is one of the bridges from the internal to the external. And in Buto, that's one of the keys now for me, is what I felt like I learned and discovered and then kept going with, is if you're 100% internal focused completely on yourself and going inside to like an organ or the cellular level, it's an exquisite moment. And then you have all the way on the other side of that spectrum, being completely external right now, talking to you, having to really integrate, or to be even outside in the world, interacting, not knowing a situation, what's going to happen. And you have all that area between. And we can really play with that. How can we be 50-50 even? How can we be paying attention to the outside, but also paying attention to ourselves? So like, playing with those areas, so that we can really learn to attune to a situation. How much do we have to be present outside, or how much do we need to go in order to process something? And then can we come back out with that truth that we found from either world? And like, so that's where sound and movement work together for me, this ability to go inside, outside.
And that's really interesting, because in Rachel Bunting's work, who was the first dancer we spoke to, in the piece that we presented at Experimental Sound Studio, she talks about the vagus nerve, and this nerve connecting, the muscles of the mouth to the heart. and also to our digestive systems. And you know, in Adriana Cavero's work, she's taught speech is always, she says that speech is always a question of bodies, you know, and it's about, and that's what is, you know, very, you know, exciting is this experimental investigation in your work between the physical body and the voice, and how through these both physical and through poetic speech, you can create an intimate connection with the audience and take them on this transformative journey. And Christeva, the French philosopher, talks about the cora, you know, and again, I think it's really talking about this relationship with the vagus nerve connected to the body and how it's utilized, you know, to develop. And in the Gold test, you talk about, you know, what, there's a wonderful text that's very relevant to our current times.
So how about Don't Feel, the end part where I'm singing? I know I wrote that song. I like made that song actually in, I think, early 2019, in the middle of, traveling and realizing kind of my own connection to just being a person that traveled a lot on my own. Like when I was young, I did so much solo traveling and had a lot of like, I suppose now I look back and it was like pretty scary. I was pretty out there, risking a lot, just being a young woman traveler. Like looking back, it's just so funny how cavalier I kind of was, and to be, I think many people don't even imagine you could do something like that now, or I don't know. It's just different, right? We live in a very different time. Like I did a lot of this traveling with no like cell phone or Google Maps to tell me where I was or anything. So literally safety. Even with Formidable Dreams, the film that I worked on for a few years, it definitely dealt with a lot of idea of fear or being female in a space and feeling unsafe, and public space. And that's been interesting for me too. I feel like I can reclaim public space in a way that I hadn't been able to access in many years, in Chicago for one, and maybe it's just how I've evolved, but I'm just taking advantage of the parks so much more. And I feel much safer to be out in the parks than I did when I first was here in Chicago. Often if I was like riding my bike around and I'd stop at a public park, I didn't necessarily, I had to always be on the lookout because I felt like people were very, you know, I don't know, that just when you're a solo female out there on the world, it's interesting. So the public space has changed, I think, as more people are out in it. It has changed.
Yeah, Jane Jacob, you know, in her book, Great American City, The Life and Death of Great American Cities, she talks about the more people that are in public space, the safer it becomes. Mm-hmm. And that is one of the things that we've observed with our public performance series as we work in Chicago, is this how, you know, transforming the trauma that exists in a site. And we're working in a city that has been really impacted for, you know, decades and centuries of systemic segregation, systemic racial violence to specific communities in our city. And, you know, creating, and one of the things we get asked to do with our performances is tackle areas where there has been sexual assault, because we live in a neighborhood where there is a high level of sexual assault. And I really relate to this idea of, I went on my first solo trip when I was 16, and actually was in a very dangerous situation. I was camping on the west coast of Scotland, and I narrowly escaped. And we are still living in a time as women where to be in public space is dangerous, and our bodies are violated. And so the necessity to actually be working in public space and to reclaim, there is a reclamation that we need to do, both from the brutality of violence, which is both from institutional and drug related. There's which exacerbates poverty, etc. But and you have been engaged specifically. Oops.
I'm just. They're doing some work next door, I realize.
So I am going to open it up to questions from the audience. So if you have a question, please pop it in the chat, and we will discuss it with Sara. But I want to just ask you to talk about, because this idea of trauma and creating resilience and working in public space is a really, how have you been thinking about that this year in particular? Do you have some, because you've been doing a lot of work around that.
I mean, just meeting up with people and being outside and being able to dance in a safe environment. We wear masks and we dance, and we're out in public, so anyone can see us, anyone could interact with us. And then I meet new people, like I've made some new friends through that. And I love walking and talking with people, but even more, I love playing with people. I'm an adult, I realize, but I'm still very much a child at heart. And I think nonverbal communication, like play, is so essential. And now I also know, like, just the idea of falling down and getting up, rising and falling, you can create, you are creating new neural pathways in your brain when you do this. So this work is, like, I think fundamental to just living, to continuing to thrive as a person that's getting older. I am getting older. I hate to say it or even think it, but honestly, it's happening, and that there's no going back. We can't go back to some version of ourselves, and we can't, like, I don't know, I don't want to spend time lamenting or being like, oh, I'm not that anymore. It's like, but I'm still so capable inside my body. And I love that, and that we can keep growing in that capacity. Just, I really admire that even idea and thinking, because I think it is counter to our culture. Our culture kind of pushes us to believe that youth is the only, that's it. And that after that, you just slowly disappear and disintegrate or become unimportant or whatever, unless, there are definitely class and race issues along all these lines that we're talking about today, that make something better or worse for someone depending on your race or class. And in that hierarchical system, in my bio, some people say, what is this? You say this capitalist quest for the eternal elixir. Like, what does that even mean? Like, what is, and I do think I need to define it for myself more, as well as anyone, just to say that, yeah, to me, that American culture always sold me something always was selling me something. And I couldn't buy it. So I feel like that's what it is. It's like I keep just going, trying to like kind of look past all that, like kind of marketing, advertising that has like really led our world. I mean, you know, in so many ways because of big companies and money, and they decide what, you know, what happens to people in a way, what becomes safe, like information as well. So it's a lot to just, I think I just took it off on like a platform that could go in any direction, but really to say, yeah, that meeting outside and being creative together outside, like with musicians, with artists, like, and then talking to people is really, even random people that you might meet because of that, is just life, nourishing. It's life affirming. Yeah.
Yeah.
I need it to survive. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there are a couple of questions in the chat. Thank you, Doobie. And
Nylon, I see his question.
question, how do you feel about nylon? Is it an occurring material in your work? Is it the availability or cost, or is there more to it? And then the second question from Doobie is, I'm curious how you think about navigating audience fear, expectation, and the emotional journey when you perform. Do you anticipate that the experience or plan for accommodating that as part of your pieces? So let's focus on this second. Sorry, that's from Duff.
Yeah, that was second one was from Duff. Yeah.
Thank you, Duff.
That's cool.
Thank you. It's a very interesting question. Do you want to focus on that one?
Sure. Yeah, because nylon is like, I don't know what he's referring to there, because it's, you know what, I use whatever materials I have. I really rarely buy anything for performance. I recycle, reuse, and and that I believe is also disruptive to the capitalist system, to not buy things. So I love to reuse and repurpose and try to use, if something is normally used for one thing, I want to use it for something else as well. So that's that answer, I think. And thank you also for your admiring. And then the curious about navigating audiences, that's so interesting, because I use that very much when I'm in person with performing with people. I think, as Corin could attest to, being an audience member many times, like I think I'm very attentive to what's happening to the audience, and I think I am paying attention to them and also caring for them somehow in the space. But I know I have also caused fear and not known it. And people have told me later that I've caused fear in them. Often when I climb to a high place and balance, because I like to do this, like create, and some, you know, it creates a feeling of unsafety for people. So yeah, but I learned how to navigate that. But I really do turn on my best listening skills when performing live. And that's definitely an issue when I'm performing online. Like there's no measure there. So that's still something I'm really questioning or wondering about, or would love to talk about with any other artists that are using the online platform, how they end up navigating that loss. Like you don't immediately experience people.
Yeah, I was particularly thinking about a performance you did in May at Mozart Park, where again you took the audience on this journey through the park that involved interactive activities like feeling the ground under our feet, and then this falling action onto the ground in the middle of the work. And then at the end, we were all sitting around in a circle, and this young man had been watching, a young Black boy had been watching the performance online and suddenly realized it was in the park down the road from where he lived. And so came and joined the circle as we were sharing personal experiences. And after that performance, I felt very grounded and, I'm very rooted to the earth. And hopefully that young man did as well, through the interactivity, through the, I don't know if you got to chat with him.
Oh yeah, actually, Luke Mosley is his name. He'd probably be very excited that you called him a boy, actually, but he's actually not. He's a man. But it was hard to tell. Everybody has masks on and everything. In fact, when he first joined the circle, I didn't recognize him as someone that I knew, but he is a musician also. And yeah, but lives right there. And later we did meet up again and do the rising falling exercise together because he hadn't got to participate in that part, and that was really fun. And yeah, I think just creating that space for me was also so exciting. I collected these stumps that we could all sit on from my friend who I knew had a little stash, and just that interaction too became like really joyous way for him and I to meet up and then to bring the stumps and then bring them back. And I love the idea of loaning stumps to have like open-hearted conversations. Make a circle somewhere. It's just really great.
So there's another question from Dimple in India who's joining us. And she says, hello, Sarah and Corin. It is interesting to see how unsafe it is for women anywhere in the world. Yes. It's not be understated, and there's not enough dialogue about it. First world countries and developing world countries, the position of women is the position of women in the same position? ? I am trying to understand the position in context, cultural difference, and developed countries, how safety is for women compared to here. Well, Sarah, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, I don't think it's like it's almost becoming, it's unsafe for women. It's also unsafe for Black people, brown people, immigrants. We're living in America. It is unsafe, almost to be human in America right now. But definitely women, it's unsafe for sure. I never felt protected by police. I never felt protected even by acquaintances. I definitely felt protected by friends, male friends, or people that I knew were already close. But as far as like a person that I didn't know, and I've just developed kind of a heightened safety awareness and smartness. And I started taking martial arts and things to make myself, stronger or more aware of how I am in outside spaces or in places where I don't speak the language, or public transportation, for instance, very unsafe place to be. I feel like I've definitely been sexually, assaulted on trains, or, it's really pervasive here in the U.S. I don't know about all countries. When I was in Japan this last year, I felt very safe there. I felt very safe in Thailand as well. I didn't feel threatened, but maybe because I'm older now too, there's a different level of safety versus unsafety. I think you can be a victim more easily when you're young. Somehow I'm not an expert, but just from experience, I would definitely say first world countries, I've definitely experienced a lot of unsafety.
I think the idea of safety is a systemic issue in as it pertains to women's bodies, and as you were saying, and to Black bodies, brown bodies, immigrant communities, and in Chicago, it is very prevalent in specific neighborhoods. Specific neighborhoods are the people, the children, and the families are targeted.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates, you know, and I was witness to a sexual assault outside my house last year, where the police actually let the suspect walk free. So, you know, we're dealing, and the idea of rape kits being documented is just a very, we're still just starting to have that conversation in America, because my Megan Tui, who is the New York journalist, you know, spoke about that in 2010. So safety for women in the home, because I know that, you know, domestic violence. And actually, I was talking with my girlfriend in London this morning, and abuse in the home towards children is up 23% in the UK. And I don't know what the data is here. But so when we talk about, you know, public performance has the capacity to really transform this violence. And this is the conversation we need to be having going forward. We need to, you know, yes, we're dealing with the pandemic, but we can be safe in parks.
Mm-hmm.
We can be safe dancing, moving our bodies in public space. And the more people that are out there, the safer it is. Now, you know, for kids who are at home, you know, it maybe being outdoors at the moment is a safer place. You know, this is the irony of the situation we are in these times. So I'm just wondering if there are any other questions. Dimple saying thank you. I don't know if we specifically got to your question, Dimple, but I think the issue of women worldwide is a deep problem that we need to continue talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sarah, I can hear the bells and the whistles of people outside celebrating as they're driving down.
Yay!
Talking about public performance. It's starting to happen here in Chicago on November the 7th, 2020, as we celebrate victory, hopefully for peace and for love. And what was that song? What were the words in your song that you made?
That second song, just how about don't feel hate? How about feel love? How about love? How about love? How about don't feel hate? How about just feel love?
Love, love. How about hate? Hate. Don't hate. Love, 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 love.
Love, love, love.
And so we have one final question in the chat for you from the audience, and this is from Sophia Kidd. Hello, thank you for your good morning message. Lovely to see you here today, or hear from you today. So she's asking you, Sarah, what is Sarah's relationship to materiality in her work? So interesting question. And I was thinking about that actually as I was watching the gold test last week and thinking about those relationships.
Yeah, I definitely, I like to use object and material, both for their sonic properties, their kind of, yeah, I think material use properties. Like I said before, I like to use, like, I love to use plastics. I guess, yeah, that's maybe what Doobie was referring to, nylon. I think he was referring to my use of plastics, more like I love plastic. It's got such great sound and just versatility in terms. I mean, I really hate plastic, I should say. But the fact is that it's here and we can use it rather than just keep throwing it away. I definitely always think about trash. So my relationship to materiality is that I really think we should think about our trash more. And in my work, I love to just keep using things that most people consider trash, and or like, yeah, just plastics, which most people don't even think about how they use it. They use it so often. We interact with plastic all the time, and there's a whole I didn't really go into it. There's a couple photos in that document where there's some plastics being used, this with the zip ties and the plastics. This is like, because I think that we're all, you know, here's another one with the plastics. We're already having microplastics in our bodies. Like, so, I mean, we're already being kind of transformed
58
by plastic.
1,000 particles we consume a year, apparently, according to CVs.
So yeah, so here's another plastic costume. It just so that's again like this idea of external space. You know, here's something that we were just using so much, and now it's like literally part of our DNA and how we're going to go forward as human beings. So. There is something to that. I love when I work with an object, it's as intimate to me as a human being. I love the relationships I can develop with objects. I am totally in love with this mug, for instance. I drink from it every single day, you know, and sometimes it's a different mug, right? But right now it's this mug. And it's such a relationship, right? We develop relationships to our things, our clothes, you know, like definitely the longer you have a t-shirt, the harder it is to get rid of it, even when it's falling apart. So I guess if that's to answer your question, I have a very intimate relationship to material for sure. Yeah.
You know, and I think, you know, this idea of ecologies of care, and really thinking about your practice as an artist is kind of, you know, weaving these ecologies of care, both internally with the internal body, with the public, with the site, and then, you know, you're talking about these objects and as extensions. You know, it could be a plastic flower or a real chrysanthemum that is exchanged with the audience, or the lipstick, or the dress that you're wearing in Gold Test. That to me, there was a resonance there with the reason, and that I, you know, as a viewer of your work, I'm very aware of how all of these choices and decisions that you're making are integral to your care, you know.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing.
It's really, thank you. That's really beautiful. That reminds me too, referring to Sophia's thing, like I think she's referring to the moment when I'm putting the light on people's face. In that performance, I did that performance many, many times in all different kinds of spaces. And that's why that document was created, to kind of like tell the story of that, what that became. But what was so even more beautiful is I give people this opportunity to experience light, but then I pass on all the tools. And so the audience then does it for each other. And that to me was like, wow, how beautiful. Like, not only can I light up someone's face, but then I can like provide the tools, which is what you said earlier, of this, like, by offering my gesture and giving a little bit of like, here's an instructional, you know, this is how you do it. People were just naturally mirroring the activity and then passing it all the way through the audience, whether it was at the Museum of Surgical Science or, you know, at Elastic Arts or wherever it was happening. But people would pass it and I would watch them take great care to like find that reflection, because it was a mirror and a sequin purse and a flashlight. And it was those three things and negotiating them. And yeah, it was, to me, that is very much, so I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, and Sophia's just making the comment that when you've placed your feet on the metallic rust, you know, and we'll share the links to those performances in the event, in the Facebook event page for Sarah's talk today, because you know, there's also the performance she did in between worlds that she did in 2015 for Outside, that we were like wondering whether to share today, because it's such a powerful, I mean, the public were transfixed and transformed. So we're over time.
I know, I realize.
And there's always so
Thank
much
you.
to talk about, you know. I mean, your work is so extensive, and, you know, people have said, you know, you're really, you know, Sarah is really, you know, at the heart of the performance scene in Chicago, and is out there practicing, you know, working in the parks, you know, on the streets every week. And I know that she, but just to recap on the conversation that we had today, we first of all talked about the agency of the gaze within digital space, and how this aspect of utilizing the camera to like have agency of perception of the body. And then that actually thinking about the body, you know, we talked about the internal and external spaces, the home, the park, but the interior of the body, and how this these physical systems are vibrated with the voice and through speech, and the importance of a practice that is based in body and speech. And then we talked about public space and the importance of, and especially, you know, in relationship to our current times, living in a pandemic and in lockdown, and how it's so, and the trauma that has been so pervasive in public space, and how we can, in creating interactive public performances that really, in, you know, are part of the ecology of care, you know. And I think Out of Sight has been quite specific in terms of the way in which we work in public sight to create situations of care with the public. And that's something that I've been quite a proponent of. And I think, you know, really, but really kind of thinking about performance as a transformation of public space. And this is a lot of the deep work that we still have to do, and we'll have to continue more of as we come out of the pandemic. But thank you all for joining us today. Next week, we are talking with the artist Ike Trinks. Ike Trinks has did her first performance with Out of Sight in 2013, and it's going to be another phenomenal conversation. And we're in the midst of planning and plotting for next year. So I would really, and we're in the midst of creating a fundraiser drive to fund performance artists to produce interactive public performance in 2021. So please think about either subscribing to the Twitch channel. You can pay a monthly fee of $6, or we're fiscally sponsored by Experimental Sound Studio, so you can, if you'd like to donate a larger amount that is tax deductible, please consider sending them a check. And we are also really committed to supporting artists and funding their practice. So if you wish to fund Sara's work personally, directly, you can send her a Venmo link to Sara Zalek. I've just popped it in the chat there. That's through venmo.com. And again, thank you for all your fabulous questions and for joining us today. It's always a treat to listen and talk to performance artists about their incredible work. And it's been a very special pleasure to be here with Sara today. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Corinne.
Shall
Thank
we
you so much.
end with a little dance?
A little dance, a little improv. You know.
No.
Love.
Love. Stop.
Love. We get today. Love. Ooh. We get today. Love. We get today. Love. We get today. Love. Woo. We get today. Love. We get today. Love. Woo.